if you want to become better as a triathlete, you have to, first of all, understand where you stand and have a complete inventory of yourself and your relationship and your position in every part of the sport in order to become better. In the last video, we actually talked through your goals as a triathlete, establishing those goals, establishing why those are so important to you, and then understanding what you think is stopping you from getting to those goals. But really what this inventory is about is you have an objective, you have where you are right now, you probably have an assumption about what you think you need to do, which is put in more hours or put in more time or wake up earlier or whatever you think you need to do to reach those goals. And then based on modern life and the constraints on your time, you probably are assuming that you can't actually do that. And the inventory is designed to give you a complete rundown of all the hidden areas where you can gain time and really uncover the potential I believe resides in every triathlete to reach their goals. So the checklist is really fundamental to uncovering the obstacles and some hidden paths to success. So the 6 parts to the Triathlon Research Checklist are done in order of the things that you can do right away and make immediate improvements and time savings on, all the way to the things that are going to take a lot of time to change based on habit and develop new thought processes and physiology and things. So most people tend to get fixated on the long-term things they need to change and forget about a lot of the what we call low-hanging fruit that you can pick off and immediately gain time in the sport. So the classic example of this that we do with all triathletes is equipment. And professional triathletes spend a lot of money on the sport of triathlon. Typically $50,000 to $100,000 is the investment that you need to make financially to become a professional triathlete. But age groupers, when they first get into the sport, have this mistaken assumption that if they could just get a fast, fancy looking triathlon bike, they would go really, really fast and solve a lot of their goals or meet a lot of their goals in the sport a lot quicker. And that's just not true. Seton Claggett, my friend at Trisports, has done years and years of extensive research as I think the world's foremost authority on triathlon equipment. He's been a triathlete for 25 years. He's qualified in his age group for Kona, and he runs the world's largest online dedicated triathlon sports store. And everything that comes through their warehouse and their store, he tests and gives his recommendations. And one of the things that Seton told me was he helped me develop this checklist of the things that will make you faster quickest. And this is really counterintuitive, because when you look at your bike, it's the most expensive thing that you can buy and has the least impact on time out of almost all the pieces of equipment that you could purchase. So there's an inverse relationship there between expenditure of money and result. And ironically, most people have no clue what's going to make them faster quickest. They just know what they see and what's been advertised to them and what they want to get. So the number one piece of equipment to make you faster in the sport of triathlon tomorrow, if you were to go do an Olympic distance, you can actually get almost 2.5 minutes faster by buying a skin-tight triathlon suit that is aerodynamic compared to what a lot of people wear, which is a poorly fitted suit that ends up creating a lot of drag for them. And this is so important because when you get out of the water and transition onto the bike, your biggest challenge on the bike is aerodynamics. And the skin-tight tri-suit actually has the biggest impact on your time of anything. The second most important piece of equipment is actually the Aero Bars. So if you think you need an expensive tri-bike, Aero Bars, which are a small investment if you have a regular bike at this point, are a great way to get almost all the benefit of that, aside from the aerodynamic frame and some of the other special features you get with a tri-bike. The third most impactful, and that again, that saves you almost 2 minutes. The third most impactful piece of equipment on your time is an Aero helmet. And Aero helmets, according to Seton, are fundamentally misunderstood for a lot of reasons. Because, first of all, just because it looks good or looks cool doesn't mean it's the right helmet for you. Depending on your bike fit, if you're at a really low aggressive fit, or if you don't even have tri-bars, Aero helmets come in all shapes and sizes. And what Seton always recommends to me and the athletes that I've seen him talk to is, before you buy an Aero helmet, you need to get a bike fit first. And once you know your bike fit, then you'll be able to tell which Aero helmet's going to make you a lot faster. But if you pick the right helmet, it can save you a lot of time. After that, going down, you have different components that make you faster on the bike. You have your front wheel, getting a Aero set of race wheels. And it's funny because as you go down the checklist, the things get more and more expensive and they have less and less of an impact. Whereas the initial items I just described to you, can get the top three all for probably under $500 combined if you shop smartly with people like Seton at Trisports. So that is really a fundamental paradox in the world of equipment, is if you feel the need to go get the most expensive bike, look at that money and look at the other things you could buy for that, whether that's the top pieces of equipment I just named that make you faster, maybe some better running shoes, or quite frankly, and we'll go over this later in our discussion, is power meter, heart rate monitor, training tools that will allow you to get much more fidelity on your training and get faster a lot quicker. And then finally, coaching and other things that you could spend that money on. So take that $4,000 or $5,000 that you're tempted to spend on a really awesome tri-bike, and then look at your goals and say, well, this is going to save me 25 seconds on an Olympic distance triathlon. What's the cost in other things I could have that would gain me minutes right away on the equipment side, and maybe tens of minutes and all kinds of time that you could save if you invested it in training and coaching and all the different things that we'll talk about later in this checklist. So that's the first real inventory you have to do, is look at your equipment, look at the inventory of what you could have right now that's going to make you faster immediately. And professionals all have wind tunnel tested equipment. They all have the best tri-bikes, the best Aero Bars, the best front and rear wheels. They have special aerodynamic screws even on their bike that are not that expensive that you can get. They aerodynamic drink holders is a new time savings that companies are constantly innovating and coming up with these things. And then obviously wetsuits, running shoes, and then finally heart rate monitor is a huge investment and that's a training tool. It's a relatively inexpensive investment. A power meter, which is a bit more expensive, and then a Garmin watch, which will measure your foot strike and different cadence of your run, and then a tempo trainer in the pool. And these four training tools, which I'll talk about later when we get to the training checklist, can be revolutionary for feedback that helps you become a better triathlete. So that's the first thing we go over, is your equipment that you should have, and in the order of importance of what's going to make you fastest, because most of us don't have an unlimited budget in this sport. And then the second part of the checklist that we go through is your transition inventory. Your transition in triathlon is a classic example, I think the best example of what really is the secret to the success of professionals. And we'll talk about this later in the inventory of you as a triathlete, but when you get to the race starting line, the physical part's done, the work's done. Your fitness is what you show up to the race with. You're not going to change your physiology. So it really turns into a mental game. And Jamie Turner, who coached Glenn Jorgensen, the world #1 triathlete in 2014, told me that the secret to winning championships is not focusing on results, but it's actually focusing on process during the race. And he said athletes need to learn how to do the process, then they need to do it, then they need to learn how to do the process when they're tired, And then finally, they need to learn that the highest level of racing is learning how to do the process under pressure. So learn it when you're fresh, learn it when you're tired, how to do it just as well when you're tired as when you're fresh. And then finally, get to the final level, the championship level, you need to be able to do that under pressure. And when you look at transition, it is a way to train yourself to take your mind off of the outcome, the pressure, the goals that you've set for yourself for this race can really be debilitating. And Mark Allen, 6-time Ironman world champion, talked about this in some interviews that I've done with him on our podcast and live event. He said, look, your brain is an energy hog. It consumes over 20% of your energy, and it's only a couple percent of your body weight. And if you're letting it go in overdrive during racing, just physiologically, you're taking energy away from the rest of your body that you need for your cardiovascular system. So transition is really a way for you to focus on not just improving those little seconds on your time or even minutes if you're slow at it, but more importantly, calming your mind during a race. So professionals approach transition, even though they are so good at it that they're not going to save many seconds, they approach transition religiously, because they know that leading into a race, when they start rehearsing extra time on transition, that they're conditioning their mind and their physiology and their outlook to get ready for race day. And then that morning or the day before, 2 days before, when they really set up their transition area with that checklist, that is something that they have, and it gives them confidence rather than makes them nervous about the race, because they know that the process works. And I've trained it under fatigue, I've trained it under pressure. And then professionals execute certain things in transition that you should learn how to practice right away. And that is, they have a way they set everything up, and everything's in the right place for a reason. There's nothing extraneous set up. They have a checklist. They do execute flying mounts, getting onto the bike, where they got onto the bike and then strap in on the way out, rather than sitting down, putting on their shoes, and then getting on the bike. They execute flying dismounts getting off the bike. They execute, they rehearse transition much more than amateurs and elites do. Professionals take it to a whole new level in terms of rehearsals for the reasons that I described. So transition is a really important way for you to start acting like and feeling like an elite and a professional triathlete very quickly, and that will have carryover effects into the rest of what you do as a triathlete. So those are the two things, transition and your equipment inventory, that you can work on right away, and within 2-3 weeks, if you're really diligent about it without doing any extra training, you can make a huge immediate gain in your triathlon time. So the next part of this inventory, we're going to go into steps 3, 4, 5, and 6 will be going over the things that you are not able to impact right away, but will have the longest term impact on you. So that would be your form, your fitness, and your mindset as a triathlete, and the things that really separate professional elite triathletes from age groupers and amateurs. But the good news is, right now, for not a lot of money and not a lot of extra time spent training, you can go implement these two things in the sport today and start feeling like a professional, or whatever level of triathlon that you want to get to, based on these habits that you adopt. And really, this inventory is about the habits of triathletes at all levels: professional, elite, age grouper, and then finally what beginners do. And if you'd like to go through this in more detail, we actually have put together this entire checklist, put it together in a PDF document. We'll actually give it to you for free at the end of a one-on-one coaching consultation that you can do with one of the triathlon research coaches. And on that consultation, we help you determine your goals in sport, what's blocking you from getting there, and then what you want to do, or what you can do in order to solve that problem. And the checklist is something that we give you at the end of that call, and that you can go finish filling out and seeing where you stand. So If you'd like to get a physical copy of that, all you have to do is just get on a free coaching consultation with one of our coaches. So in the next video, we'll go deep into form, fitness, and mindset.